Welcome to Wednesday. It's Mailbag Day on IB Nation Sports Talk, along with Vince D'Addario, Sean Stiers. Hope your day is good. How are you, Mr. D'Addario?
I'm here. I'm ready to roll. It's a beautiful Wednesday outside. It's crisp. It's clean. I love it. I love the weather when I walk outdoors and this time of year. It's my favorite time of year.
Chill in the air. It's definitely sweatshirt weather.
Oh, isn't it great? Oh, it's
great. Off and on. Off and on.
Yeah, it was
a little chillier, a little sooner than I would have liked it.
That's fair. But it's supposed to warm up a little bit next week, so it's not going to be as cold. And today's the last day of clouds. It's supposed to be just sunny for the next week or so. So I am on board with that. And on top of that, Sean Stiers, my grass isn't growing quite as fast. That's always a bonus.
Yeah.
It's that time of year.
Mine's I'm in between. I'm like, do I go ahead and mow or do I wait a little bit longer and hope that it's the last mow that I have to have before it's leaf pickup time?
I know. That's it. It is a tough balancing act with the leaves. You know what I mean? Because I'm with you on that because I bagged the grass. And so
I don't even think I did leaves last year. I think
really
it was so windy they just blew all over the place, and I never did them.
Lucky. Although my wife does a great job. She'll have the leaves done when I get home from work because she just can't stand it out there with the leaves. She just gets out there and she does it. She's amazing. It's great.
I'm kind of curious. Shaquille Oatmeal popped in and said, "Wow, I made a live show." And then DK asked him what time it is there, and he said 11 p.m.
11?
So I'm curious where you are. Are you in Europe somewhere?
As I say, 6-hour time difference would put him in Europe, I believe. Yeah.
Where exactly are you?
Because I think
Keel.
I want to say Italy.
Spain.
Oh, Spain. Okay. All right.
I've never been to Spain. Kind of like the scenery.
Okay. All right.
That's a song, Vince. So
I'll see.
Sorry to throw it right over your head, right off the bat.
That's where we are. Now, Shaq, we'll call him Shaq. Are you in the military? I assume that's a yes. I assume you're.
He said in Spain.
Okay.
I don't know, unless we have air bases in Spain. I don't know if we have any military presence in actual Spain.
Or just living in Spain. Maybe he's just living in Spain. I mean, that's wow.
I know we had something in Italy for a while, it feels like, but I don't know.
I'm not up on my world politics and, that kind of stuff. I'll be honest with you. So
you don't know where the U.S. has military bases located globally, Vince?
No, I definitely do not. And
I don't either. So especially after, there've been a lot of closures since I was in. So
unless they're not.
The place I was in is actually closed. So
unless they're talking about it on a fake political drama or something that I would watch, I definitely do not know where our military bases are outside of America. So
you're not alone. That's just fine. Joe says he's painting the bathroom today. So good luck painting the bathroom, and we are his entertainment.
Hey,
so
glad we could be of service.
Hopefully it doesn't go. He says he does work for the Navy base in Rota, U.S. government related. So
okay.
So there you go.
Beautiful. Right. That's why I love the live chat, because we can actually ask questions and get, answers in real time.
Yeah. Rota is in the southwestern part of Spain. Okay.
Okay.
So it's funny because, looking at the YouTube, we can look with the different analytics on our YouTube, back end page, and you can see where people are listening and watching and all that kind of stuff. And we have, it's might only be 5, but there are plenty of countries around the world where the good old Irish breakdown videos are watched. So
the back when we first started, and it was a different podcasting company, But you could go on there and they would actually have a map and they would show, all the different countries that the
Mhm.
podcast would be downloaded in. And it was shocking to me, all the different countries where people would download the podcast. I mean, it is amazing how global Notre Dame football. I'm not even going to say how global Irish Breakdown is, although it is, but
It's people
how
following Notre Dame football, obviously.
it's how global Notre Dame football is. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that is just amazing to me. Amazing.
Yep. Father David up in Canada. We got
a few Canadians that hop in from time to time, as they say. So I believe oh gosh, why is his name? It's Rocket. It's like initials and then Rocket. My brain is
someone's handle. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. But he's from Canada because when he sends a super chat, it has CA in front of it. So
okay,
he's awesome.
All right,
The longtime listener / follower.
Well, wherever you happen to be watching / listening, we do appreciate you.
Yes,
jumping in with us. And again, it is Mailbag Day, so get those questions in the mailbag. We've got rapid fire later as well. So let's cue them right up. Joe Allen had the first question in here tonight. Biggest concern for the Georgia Tech game?
Well, for me, I think the biggest concern is if their starting quarterback is actually playing and he's at 100%. I mean, that's the biggest concern. I mean, he's a mobile guy. He can throw the ball, and you've Benjamin Morrison is out, obviously. And especially when you have a mobile quarterback and he kind of makes some things happen with his legs, you want to make sure that you're doing what you need to do up front to contain him and all that. If you let him loose with his legs, or you let him loose as far as just scrambling out and then just finding a guy late, with the scramble drill, like that kind of a thing, that always gets you a little worried, obviously. And so from just a straight gameplay situation, that would be my biggest concern is the play of the Georgia Tech quarterback.
I guess to me, it's just the depth thing, especially at corner now with Benjamin Morrison out. I think we've said all along, we're all pretty confident with the guys, at the top of the depth chart and that kind of thing. Now, they've shown their depth, obviously, at a couple of different areas, both at corner and at defensive end, but like how far does that go? Like if one more guy gets knocked out, what does that do potentially? So that's right. I think that's just going to be my biggest concern the rest of the season. Otherwise, I'm pretty confident. I think last week was kind of like the starter kit set going up against Ashton Daniels and Stanford's offense compared to Georgia Tech and potentially Haynes King this week. If it's not King, Pyron, I think is his name. Yeah, Pyron
sounds right.
Zach Pyron, because they're both mobile guys. It's like I think that there is definitely one, Georgia Tech has a better offensive line. Two, Haynes King, if he is playing, is a better quarterback even than Ashton Daniels, and he's got a great running back with Jamal Haynes. See, I confused like which name they share. Jamal Haynes, and wide receivers are good enough, but I think that Al Golden is going to have a pretty good game plan, is my point against these guys. Again, like they might do something early, but just because they do something early doesn't mean they'll be able to sustain it. And I feel like, especially if it's the young guy, they'll be able to confuse him enough with some of the different pressures and things like that. And my gut says Georgia Tech isn't going to run wild on Notre Dame Saturday. So
I would hope not.
And that's what it's going to take. Like, I think they'll keep them fairly one-dimensional. And I'm not going to say they'll have an easy day, but they should have a good day against them.
I think your point about, depth being an issue, for the rest of the season is absolutely accurate. I share the same concern. And I've had that concern now for a little while, obviously up front, and then now with the secondary. But specific to Georgia Tech, I wanted to be a little different. You know what I mean? Just not just go straight to the depth, because that's going to be the answer from here on out, right? I mean, we talked about the impact of Benjamin Morrison and all of that stuff, and it's absolutely legit. And I think, honestly, I don't think it's going to impact Notre Dame. I don't think the Benjamin Morrison injury is going to impact Notre Dame until the playoff.
Okay.
That's when you're gonna feel, and maybe not even in the first round. If Notre Dame's hosting a game,
there'll be some impact potentially in basically any game that is not against one of the two service academies.
Okay.
Just because you've got decent athletes and playing wide receiver and things like that. Like if you've got, because like, are you going to rely on are those guys going to play 70 snaps a game? That's kind of the biggest question right now. Because again, Gray and Moore, you've got no problems with them, but you're also going to need more than two cornerbacks. Sure. That going in, and like they're not going to be able to play 70 snaps a game every game from here till the end of the season. And that's kind of what worries me is maybe the series where they've got to take some time off the field,
Right.
So, because we're definitely, I won't say definitely, but it feels like we're going to see more of Carson Hobbs, kind of what that nickel looks like. Like, does Jordan Clark just slide out and play outside if one of those guys needs a breather, and then you have Hurd, play nickel, that kind of thing? Like, I am curious to see what some of those things look like, what their plan is.
Hopefully they don't have to worry about that. I'll just say that.
Hopefully. So DJ wants to know, after the interview that I had yesterday with Chad Bishop, who covers Georgia Tech, if I think Haynes King is going to play. DJ says, seems like my guest, Chad Bishop, was on the side that he's out. And I don't know if you were able to listen to any of the interview.
I listened to the first half, okay. I believe, like the first third, I would say, until the hit the fan. So at work, because I was listening to it. I was listening to it today.
Yeah. Gotcha. And I mean that it seems to be that was the way he was leaning.
Okay.
That because it is his throwing shoulder, and they watched him in a little bit of practice. Like it sounds like kind of like the first 5 periods of practice kind of thing. I think we touched on this a little bit yesterday. So he didn't get to see him do a lot, just kind of starting to loosen up and those kind of things, and said he looked okay, but it sure sounds like there's a lean toward this is not an ACC game, and they've got 2 losses in the ACC right now. So I mean, theoretically, they're still in the thick of the ACC race to at least try to get that, like a number 2 spot in the conference and get themselves into the ACC championship game. So it sure seemed like that was the direction he was leaning. Like if he had to make the call as of yesterday when I talked to him that he would be out. But take that for what it's worth, because the head coach is still obviously the one making the decision.
And it's funny because I'm sitting there listening to the thing, and I heard him say, hey, we've been at practice, and it looks like he's doing all the same stuff he always does. I was like, oh, well, I guess he's going to play. So obviously I should have kept listening so I could have gotten more out of what he had to say. I think that was like the last part that I heard was, he's out there in the green jersey and he's, doing everything that he always does. And I was like, okay, well, he's going to play then. So that's my expectation. So it'll definitely be interesting to see, what ends up happening.
Connor wants to know, could a Jordan Travis-like situation prevent Notre Dame from making the playoffs? In this case, mass injuries rather than an injury to the star quarterback. So do you think all these injuries impact Notre Dame's playoff chances?
No, I don't, because of the timing of the injuries. I mean, there's still half the season to go. And so they're going to have plenty of time to prove or disprove the fact that they're a playoff-worthy team. So this isn't, because remember, the Jordan Travis injury happened the last game of the regular season. Now, they still had the ACC championship, what they did end up winning, but Notre Dame's got 6 games to prove that they're a playoff-worthy team. This isn't the end of the season. Now, if more key starters go down late in the season, then maybe, but as of right now, I would say no.
That's how I lean as well. Again, obviously, if you get more injuries, like I can't even imagine that at this point. But I feel like where Notre Dame is right now, where they've shown up in the human polls, if they keep winning, keep doing their job, they're 11-1 at the end of the season. Honestly, I think it would be more a direct comparison to Jordan Travis. Like it would have to be something happened to Riley Leonard to keep him out of the playoff rather than, just what they've dealt with so far.
Yeah.
Good question, though.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Hoping that's not the case.
Yes, exactly. From Joe, if Notre Dame goes 11-1 despite all the injuries, will Marcus Freeman be coach of the year, or will Northern Illinois hurt his push?
It depends on how some other teams, obviously finish up. I think there's other coaches that are more deserving at the moment. I would say the IU coach, Signetti, has a stranglehold on this award at the midseason point. Anybody that predicted IU would be 6-0 right now, please stand up. And there's going to be a lot of people sitting. So I don't think that, you know what I mean? Like, I think he has a really good, chance at that. I think the Boise State coach has a good chance at that. There's a litany of coaches I would put ahead of Marcus Freeman nationally, as far
even
as
Cristobal down at Miami as of right now would be ahead of him, and the coach at Iowa State. Go down the list.
There's a lot of time obviously left in the season, half of it, but I don't. Even if Notre Dame goes 11-1. Marcus Freeman's not at the top of my list for coach of the year. I'll just say that. There's going to be other deserving coaches, in my opinion.
No, I agree. Some of these teams who are in position right now are ultimately going to lose. But let's say Indiana only wins 2 more games the rest of the season. They're 8-4.
Right. Then his obviously.
Well, it dips, but he's still going to be in good shape, is what I'm saying, because it's Indiana.
Yeah.
And who expected even 8-4 from Indiana in his first year?
Hey, they're bowl eligible or whatever. You know what I mean? Like they're ready to go bowling already. And I don't think you could say that most of the time if you're an IU fan. So, IU has done some amazing things. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And you could make a case for Marcus Freeman because he has steered the ship. Okay, so the understanding is that they're 11-1, right? So that's how I'm going to take this.
Yeah.
Well,
that was part of the question.
Yeah, he steered the ship through a lot of injuries, right? He had, at least was the captain of the ship when the offense took a massive leap forward. You know what I mean? From where they were at the beginning of the season. The defense still played well with all of these missing guys. So, there's a case to be made, but I think there's other coaches that will have a better shot at it than he does.
Yeah, he could at the very least be in the running, and how much the injuries impact, that's all quite honestly dependent upon, when you submit awards and, all those different things, like how that is framed when you submit sort of his resume, if he's still in the mix at the end of the season, that kind of thing.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Josh wants to know if Georgia Tech will be the most talented team left on Notre Dame's schedule.
Absolutely not. That would be USC still. Maybe they're not going to be playing as well by the time Notre Dame gets to USC because they've already started to hit kind of that rough patch a little bit, but they still have way more talent than Georgia Tech across the board.
Yeah. I would put Georgia Tech probably second.
I think that's fair based on who's left on the schedule.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely fair. I think Georgia Tech probably is second, but I also think the divide between first and second is a lot wider than the divide between second and third and fourth.
Sure.
I would say that.
Yeah. Because, there's only 6 teams left. So, I would go
Army, Navy,
would
obviously.
Go USC, Georgia Tech. Is Virginia more talented than Florida State? When you compare
I would put Florida
records,
State above.
You still put Florida State up there?
Florida State's a terrible team, but they have talent. It's fair to say that Florida State is a terrible team, but they're all going in different directions. You know what I mean? We've all seen teams.
I agree with that
have talent that suck as a team. That exists, right? And that could be USC by the end of the season. Right?
Is it an illusion of talent? Was it all just overrated? Is that why they're at Florida State? Right.
But they were good at other places. They did a pretty good job in the transfer portal from a on paper standpoint.
Theoretically, yeah.
On paper, they had talent. So I would still put Florida State right after Georgia Tech. And I think, and look, I am not an expert on anybody's roster, But I think there's probably an argument to be made between Florida State and Georgia Tech, who would be 2. But they would be 2, 3, whatever. And then you're talking Virginia, Navy, Army. And Navy, Army is a toss-up between the 2 of them. So they are the definition of team, though. Army, Navy is the definition of a team and playing well as a team. But from just a straight talent standpoint, they're going to be at the bottom of these 6.
Yeah, again, like I'm just like you said, I'm not an expert on everybody else's roster. But I would, like when you just look at like Haynes King was at one point, like he started off at Texas A&M. I believe he was a 4-star guy coming out of high school. DJ Uiagalelei was obviously a 5-star. In anyone's world has Uiagalelei played like that,
right?
And then like Jamal Haynes, I think, has outplayed that. And then again, like you get past the top of the roster, it's not like I'm, going to go deep on everyone's recruiting rankings or anything like that. But those would be the tiers. Yeah,
yes,
I guess I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And then obviously, the Service Academy guys are completely different question at the other end of the spectrum. So
right, but again, they're a great team, which is why they have the record that they do.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and I completely agree with, who was it over here? Jeremy. He says teams that play well together can be more dangerous than a talented team. No question about it.
It's true.
No question about it. Seen that a million times, in teams that I've had, played against, whatever the case may be. Absolutely true.
Well, but look, there's a reason that the service academies play the option offense, because it's an equalizer. Because you go in knowing you're going to be undersized, and you're going to have like, 1s and 2-star type guys on your roster. So you play that style of offense to equalize things and kind of help balance it out. And by definition, because it's the option, one thing goes with the next, like starting with the quarterback, and is he going to give it to the fullback? Does he keep, it's like all these pieces go together, and they all have to, perform together. All the pieces have to fit together. So kind of by definition, that's how, that offense runs. And if you're good, and that's what really makes it. And obviously they both had good, really good play from the quarterbacks this year,
right,
as well, just in a different fashion than everyone else's quarterback. DK, if you could bring back one player from injury, who would it be, and why is it Jagasaw the only correct answer?
Well, I'm sorry. The correct answer for me is Benjamin Morrison. That's who I'm bringing back all day long. Because look, Charles Jagasaw, we think was going to be a really good player, but he's still a kid who has no experience. I know what I'm getting with Benjamin Morrison. And I also know that in the playoffs, Notre Dame's going to run into some really good receivers. And I would feel a heck of a lot better at neutralizing them if I knew Benjamin Morrison was covering them. So just look at his production against the 3, I've seen a bunch of stats out there over the last 24, 48 hours, right? Look at the stats of him against the guys that went 1, 2, 3 in the draft. Amazing, right? And a lot of times they were throwing to receivers that also got drafted high, right? I'll take Benjamin Morrison all day on that in this one.
Yeah, I mean, that's my answer as well. Because like, what did I talk about when we were asked about the biggest concern, the depth of the cornerbacks? And that's always been my concern. If Morrison wasn't going to be healthy, because obviously his summer he was rehabbing from a shoulder injury, right. and that's my biggest concern right now. Like, those other guys are still really talented, but
sure,
Benjamin Morrison was still at worst a second round, a guy who ends up being picked in the second round prior to the injury.
Yeah.
So
and we all, the thing with Jagasaw, and look, it is a projection, and it is a projection based on a lot of things that we've seen from high school film and what we saw in the bowl game and things like that. But it's still a projection as to what he was going to do at Notre Dame in this season as a full-time starter. We really don't know what he was going to do. We don't. You know what I mean? And
no, we don't. But I think that we can reasonably predict that he would have at least been better than more consistent than the play that they've had at left tackle.
Completely agree with that. What I'm saying is,
I know what you're saying.
I don't think we can lock him in
it's
as an
still a guy who
All-American.
played in one game, basically,
Right.
and that's we're basing everything off that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So
that's exactly right. Tyler Evans, thanks for the super chat. Biggest disappointment team this season. I mean, without a doubt, it's Florida State.
Yeah.
They were number 10 coming into the season, and they're 1-5, and almost lucky to have one right now. So, I mean, I was never sold on bringing Uiagalelei down there, and that was going to solve everything for them. Yeah. Obviously, they needed a quarterback after losing Jordan Travis, but it's just a total disaster to go from undefeated last year to 1-5.
It's unbelievable.
Oh man, I can't even imagine.
It was funny listening to you talk to the Georgia Tech writer, because he kept talking about how big of a win Florida State was, and every time he would have to have the caveat of man, that was a huge win. And we thought Florida State was going to be good. Yeah, at the time. Yeah, it was really funny because it was at the time. Because I'll never forget it. I was in a store, a cell phone store, and I'm watching it on TV as we're waiting, for our number to be called, and I'm like, holy crap, Georgia Tech is about to upset Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
Huge upset in that week 0 game, right? Well, 7 weeks later, it's not such a huge upset.
Not looking that big.
No.
But, but again, like I said, as Georgia Tech, if you're Georgia Tech, anytime you can beat Florida State, there's still some significance, even if Florida State is 1-5 right now. You know what I mean? Because it's like Florida State, Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Turns out Georgia Tech's just the better team. It was a really close game, but Georgia Tech's been the better team, as you were kind of pointing out before.
Absolutely, they are.
Talent or not. Shaquille Oatmeal. True or false? At least 2 players currently starting on the offensive line are backups next year.
That's true. That's a true statement. It might even be more than that, to be honest with you, because look, you figure Jagasaw comes back, he's probably going to start. Ashton Craig, when he comes back, he's probably going to start. Not Gerby Lambert, although he has a chance to start next year too. The right guard. God, help me out here.
Rocco?
No,
Billy Shrouth coming back.
Shrouth, excuse me.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not starting right now. He's one of the best, 5 linemen that you've got. So I'd say that's 3 guys that will be starting that are currently not starting, right? So it's going to be interesting, to be perfectly honest with you, because, Anthony Knapp is getting all these reps. Pendleton is getting all these reps and all this experience. Notre Dame's going to have one of the most experienced second offensive line in football.
Assuming they all stay. Because
that's true too. That's a good point.
I think that's going to be a question, especially since they decided to, I don't think that you were here when we talked about it last week, but the NCAA decided to keep the spring transfer portal. So there's still going to be 2 portals. They shortened the windows in both December and April, but they're keeping both,
Gotcha.
both dates open, so guys can still go through the spring, kind of figure out where they are in the pecking order. And I think that I would not be shocked if you see a couple of those guys potentially take off. Because just what you're talking about, like the fact that you get Jagasaw back, and you've got Gerby Lambert, and obviously you've got Emil Wagner playing, as we've talked about, the most consistent really of any of Notre Dame's linemen. There's obviously, and then, Knapp is in that mix as well. So you basically got 4 guys for 2 tackle spots, assuming that they're even keeping Knapp in the equation. I was going
to say, I think Knapp needs to move to the interior. Now we'll see what Notre Dame does.
But that just buries him again.
Sure. No, he'll be buried either way.
Yeah.
I think Anthony Knapp has done yeoman's work with what they've asked him to do at this stage of his development. But I do think that he goes back to being a second string guy. Maybe, he backs up both guard and the center position next year. You know what I mean? Let's see kind of where he's at. But I'm sorry, in my opinion, I think, number 1, I think he's an interior guy. And number 2, I don't think he's one of the best 3 interior guys on this team at the moment, right? And probably also into spring and into next fall. So I think if he sticks around, he's going to be a backup. Now, he's going to be one hell of a backup, but I still think he's going to be a backup because I do think Rocco's better than he is. I do think Billy's better than he is, and I do think Ashton Craig is better than he is. I think that those are your three best interior linemen right now. And then tackle, like you said, it's going to be a dogfight between three guys, I think. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting.
Oh, I think so as well. Josh says he thinks Wagner starts. I do too, for the record, but I also thought that Pat Coogan was probably going to start again this year. So, if we've learned nothing in these 2 years that Joe Rudolph has been the offensive line coach, is don't make any assumptions early on, because things can change, and during both camps they did change. Bub says, how is this for next year? Left tackle Wagner. I don't see them moving over there. I think they keep him on the right side because that appears to be where he's most comfortable. Left guard Jagasaw, center Craig, right guard Schrouth, right tackle Lambert.
That's a hell of an offensive line. I mean, I don't know that I would put it in that exact order, but having those five guys out there, that may be your five most talented guys, and you just found a spot for them by moving Jagasaw inside. I could see that being the case. I could.
You know what? Again, if it's trending in whatever direction during the spring, I just have a hard time seeing everybody sticking around at that point, especially guys who have become starters.
Because Rocco's got one more year of eligibility left after this year, but he's already a graduate student.
Right.
So that means he'd be having a sixth year. I could see him potentially having a sixth year someplace else if he gets edged out. Obviously he wasn't starting at the beginning of this year, so that's a real possibility, which is why I think that 5 could be legit.
I think next year's offensive line is going to be really good.
Yeah, yes.
All of this that they've had to go through this year, I think next year's line is going to be really good. I'll just kind of that would be how I would put it.
Yeah. I honestly like that 5. It just depends on where you want to put them. I think you could be very effective with that 5.
DJ, do you believe, as DJ does, that the Notre Dame offense has turned a corner?
I hope that's the case. I mean, what we saw against Stanford, I think, is not a shell. It's a building block of who we thought they were going to be earlier on in the season than they actually were. I don't like that it took 6 games to get here, but this is where they're at. And so I think they found the magic potion to a degree, right? Of Riley Leonard and Mike Denbrock, and the play calling and what's comfortable and RPOs and all of that different stuff. And taking into account the offensive line, I mean, you notice there was a lot of quick throws, not a whole lot of 5-step drops, hanging out in the pocket, those kinds of things, because I'm not sure that this team is going to be great at that type of thing. So it was quick throws, it was quick decisions, it was RPOs, it was things like that, and they moved the ball very effectively. So I think this is going to be more the offense that we're going to see the second half of the season.
I think so as well. And Riley Leonard just looks so much more comfortable out there, and he's looked more comfortable the last couple of weeks. And last week against Stanford just looked like a continuation of his better play against Louisville. Now, does that mean they're completely out of the clear? No. But again, you look at the schedule, you listen to Riley Leonard, you listen to Mike Denbrock, and just all these things really appear to be coming together. I don't think it was necessarily opponent related, what we saw from Stanford. Now, we do obviously have to see some consistency, can they now string 2 full games together? Because even,
for sure.
Turnout Purdue is really bad, but obviously the offense looked really good against Purdue as well. And then we still saw some speed bumps afterwards. But I do believe that the offense has finally rounded that. And we're going to continue to see improved play, and we're going to continue to see some of the stuff that we thought we were going to see early in the season.
Yep.
Joe says, watching Leonard versus Louisville makes me think he'll be okay. So not really a question, but a statement. But I think that this is just kind of a continuation of what we were just talking about. Interesting that he said versus Louisville. Louisville did obviously have the better defense than Stanford.
And there were steps in the right direction against
Yeah.
Louisville.
Yeah.
But not like there was from Louisville to Stanford. Like that was a much bigger step that we needed to see. And not only from Riley Leonard, but from the offense as a whole, right? I mean, Riley Leonard's only going to be successful in the properly called offense. And I think the properly called offense, the properly planned offense was Stanford.
DK saying I kickstarted his confidence after
Clearly
Louisville with the post game questions that I have. Okay, I'll take that.
Yeah, no, yep.
I don't know if he'd agree to that or not.
Well, he better get on board. That's what I say to that.
Like Salty said, he was dropping some dudes out there when he was answering those questions.
Dude.
Shannon, going back to the Louisville game, when Urlacher recovered the botched punt and tried to score, if he had lost the ball and Louisville recovered, would possession have flipped back over to the Cardinals?
If Notre Dame had possession and ran with the ball, then yes, that it would have been a first down, because you can't, like, once possession changes, if it changes back, then it would have been a first down, crazily enough. So,
right. Yeah, because basically like the downs essentially reset.
Correct.
At that point.
At least that's how I understand it.
Because possession has changed. Yeah.
Yes. Possession is 9/10 of the law.
Yeah, like if you fumble and then the team that, the other team recovers and they fumble, yeah, it would have gone back in that case. Carlos says, I believe you both attend home games regularly, correct? How's the crowd noise at home? On the telecast, it seems to be kind of quiet, but I don't know if that's NBC trying to muffle it out.
I mean, here's my take. I was not at this past game, and I missed a game earlier on in the season as well. But all I can go off of was I was listening to Brian on the post-game show, and he, Angela, his wife, does the photography. So she's down on the field for all the home games. And, she was at the game, obviously, against Stanford. And, she's got one of them newfangled watches that tells you how loud it is.
The decibels and all that
The
stuff.
decibels. Okay. And she said during the Stanford game, her watch went off more from a decibel alert than it has in a really long time.
Really?
That's what she said.
Interesting.
Again, don't shoot the messenger. The problem with where we are, and it's why Brian and sometimes me like to go outside on the balcony for the first couple series to kind of get a feel for the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
When we're in the press box, they've got these itty bitty windows way up high that just kind of do these, and so.
But they keep most of them closed.
Exactly.
Anyway. Like some of them are open, but
the crowd is completely muffled.
Yeah.
For us, like we can't. I mean, you can hear them, but it's like
if it gets really loud, it. But
sure.
That's interesting that she said it went off more during the Stanford game, because I felt like just watching the two, I would have said the Louisville game was a little rowdier, but maybe it was just certain moments, like third downs and more drama late in the game and that kind of stuff, fourth quarter and all that kind of thing.
DK is always poking the bear.
DK
likes to poke the bear. It's gonna get you in trouble.
He does. Does not mind the poke. TD4ND will Love get a touchdown this week, making it 8 consecutive games with a touchdown.
Why in the world would you bet against it at this point? I mean, he's the most versatile guy you got on your team, right? I mean, he's going to number 4. If Notre Dame is going to be successful, number 4 needs to be in the end zone. I would bet on Love getting into the end zone every single time. I mean, 8 consecutive games. Yeah. Sign him up.
At this point, there's no reason not to. I mean, he barely had, like by his standards, it seemed like he didn't really have that. He had 49 rushing yards last week. Or no, he had 53 rushing yards last week. 39 of it came on the touchdown run.
Yeah.
So he finds a way to get to the end zone. I would bank on that.
Man, it was amazing to me on just such a simple play how quickly he got to the sideline and then up the sideline. I mean, there was a couple of guys trying to, take an angle, and he just outran the angle. It was impressive.
Joe, yay or nay? All gold uniforms for Notre Dame.
I would need to see them before I make a definitive answer, but in my head, what I think of as an all gold uniform, no, that's a nay for me. I don't think that that's going to be any good.
Yeah, I'm. You think if they were going to do it, it would probably be a Shamrock Series game. Feels like they would have done it by now, considering gold is like
gold. Like,
yeah.
what are we talking about here? Like the gold pants on the jersey, like
like I wouldn't mind, like white pants with like gold jerseys and blue numbers, maybe something like that, or even
I would need to see the gold
with white numbers on gold. Like
a lot of ways they could mess
gold
that
as
up.
a jersey. I mean, it's obviously not very bold,
right? And
like the all gold. I'm against monochrome in general, unless it's all white. I'm against the monochrome. So
I would say that like Under Armour or Notre Dame, whatever, has gone to like that shiny gold, with the accents and stuff like that. Whether it's the ND on the arm or whether it's, around the numbers or whatever. Like if you made that a whole uniform, that would be gaudy. Yes, it would match the helmets, but it would be gaudy. That's not something I would want to see. Sorry.
Better Jeremiah Love theme song. All You Need Is Love by the Beatles or The Power of Love, Huey Lewis.
Ooh, All You Need Is Love from the Beatles is a little bit slow to be the theme song of a player, you know what I mean? So I think a ballad like Huey Lewis in the News with The Power of Love from Back to the Future, like let's go.
Yeah.
I'm down with that.
Do it.
That's a little more high tempo, you know what I mean? Like that's the power of like let's go.
It's the power of love.
That's all I'm saying.
Like the power of Jeremiah Love.
Yes.
I
think we could go with that one.
I like it. I don't know if he'd like it. I don't know if he'd know the song
he's probably never seen Back to the Future
of the 80s. Yeah.
If he ever said that out loud, it would break my heart, but I'm just going to pretend like he does.
There's probably something more current that he would want.
Probably
if he
true.
had the choice.
That's probably true.
Shaquille Oatmeal. How do you say the quarterback's name? Is it Abear? How do you say his name?
I'm not honestly not sure. I don't know.
Hebert? Is it Hebert
or Hebert? I don't know.
I thought I know Brian said it the other day. I can't remember how he said it though. But anyway, a comparison for him. What made him flip? Clemson develops the position pretty well. This is a recruiting question, so I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Vince.
Didn't even know the kid existed until he committed the other day. That's how much I knew about this situation. So
right.
I am the wrong person to ask about that one. I'd have no comparison for him. What made him flip? I know it was an early relationship with Notre Dame. They were on him very early, so there was an established relationship. I don't know, what was the be all end all and why he decided to go away from his commitment. Because the way I understand it is Notre Dame backed off when he committed to Clemson. So something made him commit, and it obviously didn't take long for them to get him away from Clemson either. So I don't know, man. I'm not really sure. That's a question for the big show, if you will. And I believe Friday is the mailbag for them.
There you go. TD4ND, what future Notre Dame opponent will be the biggest test for the young defensive backs? I would just say USC.
USC, yeah, because they're going to be the most offensively gifted and offensively, schematic in the passing game that they have left on the roster. So, yeah, on the schedule. It's absolutely USC, and I don't think it's really all that close.
No. I would concur with that. I think that's that. That's the mailbag. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's roll, baby.
All right. Interesting. This kind of came up a little bit in the mailbag. Different, but same. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Marcus Freeman has been named to the Bear Bryant Coach of the Year Award watch list.
A great honor, but it's just a watch list. That's what I would say. You know what I mean? Like, I think he deserves some recognition to have his team where they are. They're on the precipice of the college football playoff. They are, talked about a lot when people are projecting what the playoff is going to look like. there's obviously 130 plus teams in the FCS, and Notre Dame is one of those teams. So I give him a lot of credit. So I'm glad he's in the discussion. I just wouldn't make him a finalist at the moment because I think they lost to NIU, and I think it was due to coaching. I think that's on him. So I can't give him a Coach of the Year award when that happened.
I was honestly a little bit surprised to see it because, like we were going through some of the other coaches who make natural sense in terms of being able to, to potentially win an award like this. Mario Cristobal, his team is undefeated down at Miami. A pretty good turnaround for them. You've got Iowa State, you've got Signetti down at Indiana. Like even the SMU coach, I think, is probably in the mix. And then you can probably throw the Service Academy coaches in there as well. And that's not even mentioning, guys like Dan Lanning and Sarkisian up at the top of the polls right now with undefeated teams. So like the first thing I thought about, I'm just being honest, is a coach who lost to Northern Illinois is on the Coach of the Year award watch list. It's, it's not a shot at him. It's just truth. It's the first thing that came to mind. The criteria for the Bear Bryant Award says honoring contributions that make the sport better for athletes and fans alike by determining grit, integrity, and a winning approach to coaching and life, both on and off the field. So there's sort of some,
off the field stuff,
intangible, off the field type things that mix into this. It's not just X's and O's and who's the best coach and all that. Like they're taking some other things into account. Like when you look at those things, I think that Marcus Freeman probably does fit those criteria better than some of these other coaches, like just straight up win-loss record and that kind of thing.
No, I think that's fair. I do. I think that's absolutely fair. Which is why he's on the list.
Yeah.
But I still wouldn't have him winning.
You've always been a closet Miami Cristobal fan, haven't you? That's what it is.
Well, I think they're going to get their comeuppance at some point.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and throw this one from Shaquille Oatmeal in there, getting in late. Notre Dame opens with A&M next year. It's a home game, but is that going to be a loss?
First of all, that game is on September 13th. It will not be the home opener. That's not going to be the home opener. There are numerous games, all the ACC games to be precise, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them that are TBA as far as the dates. 1 or 2 of those will precede the Texas A&M game. So it won't be so just point of order, they're not going to open up with A&M next year. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
The second part of this, I have no idea.
We don't even know. Like, look at all the linemen that we talked about. Who's going to be the quarterback next year? All those different things.
Right. So they're way like, okay, hey Sean, does Benjamin Morrison come back next year? There are so many intangibles between now and then. Look, Notre Dame beat them this year on the road. I think they can beat them again at home. So no,
I think they can, but like I felt like going into this year's game, since it was a season opener and first game for Elko and all those different things, I felt like even as a road game, I like the idea of, I had more confidence in this year's game because of all those things, because it was a new head coach and their first game and all that different kind of stuff. Like felt better. Like to me, Elko with a year, his program under his belt and all those different kind of things. Now he's probably going to have a different quarterback next year as well. He might anyway. So I just think that's way too far away to be trying to make those kind of predictions right now.
Look, there's a lot of people that want, CJ Carr to be the quarterback next year. There's a lot of, Kenny Minchie fans out there. Let's all be honest. We don't know who the quarterback is going to be. Number one, we don't know what the offensive line is going to look like. There's a lot of things that we don't know going into next year. So let's just get through this year would be my suggestion.
I like it. Okay, so a couple quotes came out of the media session, the Notre Dame media session after practice last night. Some interesting ones. Some guys talking about Gabe Rubio, who, of course, came back for the Irish last week against Stanford. Here's what Riley Mills had to say about Rubio. Quote, when Rube goes in, there's going to be chaos. I don't know where it's going to happen, but if he's in there, someone's getting put on their butt or something's going to happen, end quote. That's from Riley Mills. Here's what Al Golden said about Rubio. Quote, he's just a rolling ball of nails and loves the game, end quote. So what does all that say to you, Vince?
Means he's a perfect defensive player. Like if somebody said that about an offensive player, I'd be like, I don't know about that. But as a defensive player, I want chaos, man. Like and that's what I want up front. I want chaos. And because that chaos benefits the defense. And so I freaking love it. I want more, so much more of that on a regular basis on this defense.
Absolutely. Like rolling ball of nails. Like
love
think about that little spike ball rolling in the middle of the defensive line and he's chaos and someone's getting put on their butt. I mean, that's what they needed. I think they needed a little more edge in the middle of the defensive line, and he gave them some edge for sure. And
love
like
that.
when you hear both the defensive coordinator and the guy playing next to him talk about it, it's awesome. And it's like rolling ball of nails doesn't really fit naturally, doesn't go well on a t-shirt, but it's a great calling card. You know, like this guy is a rolling ball of nails. And it made me think of some of the great nicknames, you know, like Mean Joe Green,
sure,
Hitman, Tommy Hearns, Marvelous Marvin Hagler. You know, I was trying to think like rolling ball of nails. Is there a better? Is it like what's? Can you think of an all-time nickname that would top that? Because like even the ones that I just mentioned, like ball of nails, like it's kind of hard to beat,
right? Yeah, no doubt. Love it.
Okay, so I've got a comment here from Riley Leonard from after the game the other day. He was talking about RPOs and all the RPOs that they used against Stanford.
Their defensive structure, we knew we'd have to take advantage of that. They were going to load the box up, and you know, if we can never get a little run fake here, run fake there, and collapse that defense, you know, we're going to win our one-on-one matchups on the outside. So nothing crazy, nothing rocket science, just simple RPOs, but when they're done and executed so often, you become very comfortable with it and you're able to execute it pretty well.
That was probably the most RPOs we've seen Notre Dame use in a game this season. Do you buy or sell just making more RPOs a staple of the Irish offense?
Oh, it's a huge buy. I mean, and I think they figured out because a lot of the RPOs in the early on in the season were RPOs to the outside. You know what I mean? They were outside routes. They were bubbles. They were things of that nature. Now, the ones that we saw on Saturday were more like slants and inside routes and things like that, allowing him to keep his eyes forward and on the middle of the field and things like that. I think that is the sweet spot for Riley Leonard. I think he's really good at those, clearly. Hopefully he can continue that. But I think those are the ones he's most comfortable with. They're a little bit more high risk than the ones where you're throwing it to the outside, but I think he does well with those. And like, again, they had RPOs, but this is the more obvious, even like more elementary, to be perfectly honest with you. They're not overthinking these RPOs. He's right. They're not difficult, but when executed properly, they're deadly. And that's exactly what you want. And if he can continue to execute them in the manner that he executed them on Saturday, absolutely you want that to be a staple in your offense.
I would have to think so. We've got a couple buys and, you know, a sell in here in the chat. And it just feels like watching him, like you said, the kind that they were doing. Now, he did say, and Marcus Freeman has said it as well, that there was some opponent specific to the Stanford defense to it. But still, it just feels like with Riley Leonard's skill set and the comfort level he showed running them and the rhythm that he was able to get into, it seemed like running them. It just feels like it makes a lot of sense. Because I just, you know, again, every defense is going to be a little bit different, but I can't see most teams playing Notre Dame defensively a whole lot different than what Stanford was doing the other day. You know what I mean? Just like with the general philosophy, crowd the line of scrimmage and all that different kind of stuff. It feels to me like it's the best bet. It always it always puts him in a much better situation, with his decisions. Everything was just much, quicker, crisper, the whole thing. And I mean, he completed 73% of his passes. So it's kind of hard to argue with that.
Yeah, no doubt.
And ended up with over 200 yards for the first time. So this is a question from Andre Tonsel, regular listener, of course. He tweeted this at me the other day. He said, "What is the culture to college football? Because I see it being a difficult question to really answer because every team has a different idea of what it is for their team." So how would you answer that, Vince?
Oh, this is a tough one because culture is different, I think, for every team, and I think it's different for every program. It's different for every head coach. You have to find, and I think it's different from year to year for each coach. I think you have to find what works with each team, and that's not an easy thing to do, which is why you have culture issues sometimes with the same head coach. You know what I mean? Like one year it can work great, and then the next year something's a little off, and it just doesn't work.
Right.
And so that's kind of the nuances of being a really, really good coach. You've got to be able to feel out your team, find out what that team needs from a culture standpoint, and then just drive those points home. That's not easy to do. It's really, really difficult to do. So,
and then you combine that with things like player leadership and empowerment and all those different kind of things. And you're absolutely right. It does change from year to year because you've got so much constant turnover in college football. And then you add things like the transfer portal into it. And I think it's really hard, and maybe there was some of that in the early part of this season.
I think there was. I think there was
all the newness on this team.
I think there was. I think he's got his pulse a little bit more on this team than maybe he thought he did early on. And I think that's a fair thing to say at this point. And hopefully he's got that fixed, moving forward. But on the other side of that, if we're talking about Notre Dame specifically, it's not hard to be focused for these games because if they lose one game, their season is over for what they want to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it's a little easier to gain focus when that's the case. So, again, the whole culture question is a loaded one, to be perfectly honest with you. And it's not even one that I think even great coaches can put into words. It's something that you feel. It's something that you just kind of immerse yourself with and, get to know your team on and off the field. What are they good at? What do they do? What's their off-field stuff like? So, I mean, it's just such a loaded question. And that's why the great cultures are few and far between because it's hard. It's really hard to do.
I would agree with that. Tyler just threw us in a super chat. Woo! What would you have done if you were the player from Mississippi State that got shoved by Kirby Smart? I would have done exactly what he did. Just turn and walk away. What are you going to get into it with the head coach?
What do you want him to do? Throw a punch?
Right.
That's not going to solve anything. So no, you turn around and you walk away and you be the bigger man. You as the 20-year-old or however old that kid was, you walk away from the adult that's acting like a child. That's what you do.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely agree with that. Okay. Fill in the blank. There are some people who take offense with Oregon head coach Dan Lanning saying he intentionally put 12 men on the field near the end of his win against Ohio State to let a few more seconds tick off the clock. You feel blank about it.
Conflicted, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's not like he did anything wrong. I mean, they flagged him for it. He got penalized for it. I mean, that he did what happened. What he's claiming is that he had 12 on the field for a reason, and he knew what the outcome was going to be. I don't know that I buy all of that.
That's what I say. Do you believe it? Do you believe that he was actually?
I don't believe it.
He was ready to fully take credit for it.
Absolutely.
I was a little bit, like you really thought that far ahead that you're going to run.
Yeah, no.
An extra man out there on the field because it's going to tick off a few seconds.
He had 48 hours to come up with a really good answer to that question.
Mm-hmm.
And, he did. He had a good answer to it. I just don't think I believe it. But
if he actually did have that kind of foresight and thought about it that quickly, power to him. Like, I've got no problem with it.
I don't either.
They did change the rule. Did you see that?
No.
They changed the rule today. Like the NCAA
Really?
sure moved quickly on this. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Which to me is pretty bogus. How do you change a rule in the middle of a season?
Right.
Like, to me, you've got to just kind of live with it for the rest of the year. You don't change a rule in the middle of the season.
So now it's a dead ball foul, so that the time won't tick. Is that what they
changed? So
changed?
let me find it for you here real quick. What the write-up was.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The headline is NCAA closes loophole. Where did it go? I just clicked on this story. It disappeared. Okay. NCAA issues interpretation to restore time on the 12-man. So the NCAA is closing the loophole used by Oregon to shave time off the clock at the end of the win over Ohio State in a release Wednesday. The NCAA issued new rule interpretations on how to handle a penalty for 12 players on the field in the final 2 minutes of either half. If the defense has 12 players actively participate in the down, the offense can choose, along with the 5-yard penalty, to have the game clock reset to the time that had been displayed at the snap of the football.
Oh, interesting. So they get like a free play, basically.
Right.
I don't know that I like that rule, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't know.
But again, the fact that you're going back and changing it now just because someone says they took advantage of it.
Welcome to the NCAA.
That was your rule before. Why was it in their eyes a good rule before, but now somebody actually uses the loophole and now it's a bad rule, so we got to change it in the middle of the season? I don't buy that.
That's the definition of the NCAA, the reactionary NCAA, right there. Like, definition. Oh my God, something happened. We better change it. Yeah.
The Irish English responded to the question before about the Mississippi State quarterback. He said the better question is, what would you have wanted to do? Well, obviously, I would have wanted to just turn around and socked him in the face.
Absolutely.
But that's not what I would have done.
Time and place, man. Time and place.
That's right.
And from what I saw, the player did the absolute right thing and just turned and walked away. So give him all the credit in the world.
For sure.
Because it was a heightened event. So, yeah.
That's right.
Crazy.
So we were talking about Tom Brady the other day.
Nuts, by the way.
Yeah. So because Tom Brady has been approved as a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, his access as a TV analyst working for Fox is now going to come with many more restrictions than are placed on other analysts. Here are the restrictions that Brady will have. He's not allowed in another team's facility. He can't watch practices. He's not allowed to attend broadcast production meetings, either in person or virtually. And he also cannot publicly criticize game officials or other teams. So I guess you can kind of go whichever other directions you want with this, but do you think that Brady can effectively do his job as an analyst with all these limitations? And are the limitations too much?
The answer to the first question is, can he do his job? Not well. Like you can't do your job well if you don't have all of that information. I'm sorry. You can't. That's
where you gain the insights from the coaches.
The whole point of a color analyst is to fill in the gaps and color the picture for people. And if you don't have anything to color it with, then what good are you? So can he physically do the job and just get up there and just talk? Sure. But you're eventually going to run out of crap to say because you have nothing to say about either team. So that's a problem.
And I mean, that's kind of already an issue for him right now. Like the depth of his analysis.
It's very surface.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very surface.
Very surface level. And go ahead.
I don't. So I don't think he can do it well. He signed a contract. He's still going to do it. I just don't think he's going to be able to do it well. So that's part one. Part two is, should they have the restrictions? Yes, they should have the restrictions, because if they didn't, he would have a loophole of going into these other teams' facilities, talking to these coaches, doing all these things, and be an owner. Why would you not take that information back to the team that you own?
Right.
You should absolutely have those restrictions on it. It's just like my neighbors have restrictions that they can't just walk into my house. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want you here. Just like other people aren't going to want him in their facility. It's absolutely what should happen. I have no problem with the restrictions that are put on him. It just makes it super awkward now that he's an analyst. Like, it's not going to work.
Yeah. I don't have any like the one part about it though, like he can't attend any of the production meetings either in person or virtually.
Yeah.
Like the virtually part kind of surprises me a little bit. Like, why couldn't you just let him do, like a Zoom with?
I just don't even want him talking to the other teams. Like, he's not even allowed to talk to the coaches and players.
And I mean, I guess I get why he's doing this because Fox. I mean, why he's doing the TV because Fox is paying him $375 million for 10 years to do it. So I mean, it's a lot of money. I was surprised, like I think it's been probably about a year or so ago when he obviously wasn't broadcasting yet, to hear after they had announced that he was going to go to work for Fox, that he was also pursuing ownership in the Raiders. Like, one, why the Raiders? I guess seriously. Other than it's Las Vegas, I don't know. But two, why would you want to like save that like at least a few years into this broadcasting thing? See how the broadcasting goes. You still got stacks of money, obviously, or else you couldn't be a partial owner to begin with. I was surprised that he's trying to do both of these things at the same time.
Look, there's always going to be availability for you to be a partial owner, a minority owner someplace in the NFL. I can't imagine he was a Raiders fan growing up. He was a 49ers fan growing up, from what I understand, because he lived in California, right? So I don't understand the affinity with the Raiders. It was probably the team that had open availability for ownership, so he jumped on it. But again, if you want to be an effective announcer, why are you trying to be an owner? Like, that just makes zero sense to me. It's a complete conflict of interest.
He needs all the help that he can get being a better analyst right now, and taking away these things from him is not going to do him any good. So,
well, and you know what? Like, he's not allowed to publicly criticize another team or the officials. How are you going to be a color analyst if you're not allowed to criticize the team that you're covering?
Right.
Like, oh, that was a great play.
Well, and like,
Tommy got sacked 10 yards back. What are you talking about?
Where's the line in that criticism? Like going to the whole Jerry, like, I don't know how much you followed the Jerry Jones in the radio interview that he did yesterday. Oh, Vince, you just barricade yourself in the walls of Penn High School and you just ignore everything.
Jerry's always saying something stupid on the radio. What did he say this time?
He got into it with these radio guys because they were asking him legit questions about, look, you didn't make these moves in the off season. How much is that impacting what's going on right now? And then he turned it on them and told them he didn't need them asking him those questions. And basically, this is the flagship station of the Dallas Cowboys. And he does this weekly, interview with them. He's been doing it for like 14, 15 years or something like that. And, again, it's like, the questions were pretty legit, but who decides the legitimacy of, putting this back on Tom Brady? Who decides, what is quote unquote criticism and what is just a, like
being
an analysis? Yeah.
Like, is somebody going to be assigned to be listening to Tom Brady's broadcast and deciding, what's criticism and what's not? You know what I mean? Like, number one, I don't know why the NFL approved it. The NFL has to approve all ownership. I would not have approved that. But like, look, this is a clear conflict of interest. No, you can't be a minority owner as long as you are an analyst for one of the networks that is paying us money. Now, that is a conflict of interest.
There was something somewhat similar a few years back. I don't know if you remember, Jessica Mendoza worked. She wasn't an owner, but she worked for the New York Mets. But she was also doing national broadcasts on ESPN.
That's true.
So there was a little bit of conflict there, but she managed to continue to do it for a while. She's not on those broadcasts anymore, but I don't know. I just think that I think that like he's trying to keep his Brady it's like you're trying to keep your foot in the water and all these different places. It's like focus on one thing and be great at it, just like you did when you played football. Why are you trying to dabble now and do all this different stuff? It doesn't make any sense.
I don't like it.
Try to do both right now.
I don't like it. Post football Tom Brady, don't like it.
TD4ND made this comment when I started down the Jerry Jones thing. TD, you should have been here yesterday when Jesse was here because you knew we saved the Cowboys stuff for the end of Rapid Fire yesterday. But
they were all betting when the Cowboy talk was going to happen, and then you brought up Jerry Jones. Here we are.
I think it relates to what I was talking about.
I think it absolutely relates to what we were talking about. I don't have a problem with it. I enjoyed the conversation, Sean.
All right. Carlos wants to know, favorite
man.
fast food burger joint, In-N-Out, Whataburger, Burger King. Here in Texas, it's Whataburger. I have had Whataburger. Whataburger is pretty good.
I had it for the first time in January of this year when we went to Florida for a kicking camp.
Okay.
So it was good,
yep.
I guess. Like, I don't know. It was good.
You know, my last couple experiences with In-N-Out have not been that good. And I know, like, especially in Texas, where you have In-N-Out in some places and Whataburger, you know, there's kind of like a big raging argument about which one is better. I would go Whataburger over In-N-Out, I would have to say, but my personal favorite is probably Five Guys.
Oh yeah, you're a high roller. I can't afford Five Guys.
Five Guys or Culver's would be my two favorites.
Bingo, Culver's for me. I think Culver's is one of the better burgers out there. It just kind of melts in your mouth. I'm a huge fan of Culver's. That was going to be my favorite currently. I've never had In-N-Out because that's more like West Coast in the South, and I just don't travel enough. So I've never had In-N-Out. Had Whataburger. Obviously, I've had Burger King. I am not a huge fan of Burger King, to be honest with you. So yeah, I think Culver. We go to Culver's once a week in my house. It is a staple, and we all get kids meals. All 7 of us get kids meals.
My waistline could not handle Culver's once a week. The Dario.
Well, and it's kids meal, so it's a smaller portion, obviously, which is why we all do that. Plus, you get a free ice cream, baby.
Yep. Joe says Shakey's, and Joe is an Omaha guy. And I remember there were a few Shakey's around Kansas when I was growing up. I haven't seen a Shakey in a million years.
No.
I don't even know where they are.
So there was a Shakey's around here in Elkhart, Sean, when I was a kid.
Okay.
And one of the kids that I grew up with, so we were on a lot of youth teams together, his dad owned the local Shakey's. And so every time we would have a team party, we went to Shakey's and we hit up the buffet and the game room and the whole thing. So like Shakey's was a staple when I was a kid. And I remember it being really good, probably because I remember having a lot of fun with my friends there. But yeah, Shakey's, man, that hasn't been around. Honestly, Sean, that probably hasn't been around since the late 80s.
That's what I'm thinking.
Maybe early 90s.
I've seen one. Yeah.
But yeah.
TD4ND going for the big boy. I remember we had a big boy in town growing up.
My wife loves Big Boy, and they were in Michigan for a while. And we always vacation up in Michigan, and there was a Big Boy in that town, and it was closed this past summer. I looked at my wife and it was like she lost a member of the family. Like she so looks forward to going to Big Boy for whatever reason. It was great.
Irish English from back in my stomping grounds, Salina, Kansas, asking about the Cozy Inn. And the Cozy Inn is basically like a Salina, Kansas local version of White Castle. But it's this small little... It's like, there's like 5 seats at the counter and it's like onions and burgers and they're all slider size.
Yep.
And I remember the first time we went there, I had never been there before. And like, my parents were, it was like, there was like this big outdoor party in the summer. And, like the other dad was like, hey, we're going to Cozy's. How many burgers do you want? And I was like, I don't know. 2 was fine, I guess. And they come back and there are these sliders. And it's like, I didn't realize they were these. But like you buy them by the sack. And I remember a few years back, I went back for my high school reunion and we did like it was like a picnic at the park kind of thing. And I brought a bag of cozy burgers. It's like 10 blocks from my house, from my dad's house. So
nice.
It's right there. You go in and you come out smelling like a giant fried onion.
Oh, I'm sure.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I'm sure.
Yep.
Oh, salty.
Oh, wow. He says they've expanded to Manhattan as well. Interesting. What's Salty ranting on?
Salty's getting personal. I'm going to let it go.
Salty's just always got that mind in the gutter.
Man.
Like, come on, man. All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight's show. We in, we out Thursday coming up tomorrow. The thread is up on the Champions Lounge. So submit your we in, we out questions for Thursday's show. And of course, we'll also have some comments from Marcus Freeman from his noon Zoom press conference. Interested to see what comes out of that, since there are kind of some more odds and ends to maybe tie up at the end of this.
Maybe somebody can ask him what the starting offensive line is going to be next year.
There you go. Burning questions. See how fast we can get him to.
Right.
All right. Smash that like button before you leave. Appreciate it. As always, good questions tonight in the mailbag, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.